Edmund Ashford stood at the edge of his estate and felt nothing. 3 years had passed since Catherine disappeared into that storm, and 3 years had hollowed him into something unrecognizable. The morning air carried the scent of budding roses from the fields below, but he barely registered it. His steward, Mr. Wickham, cleared his throat nervously beside him, clutching a leather folio against his chest. "The flower harvest projections, Your Grace. Better than last year." "The new irrigation—" "I don't care about the irrigation," Edmund said flatly. "I care about results." Wickham flinched. Everyone flinched around Edmund now. He'd become the kind of man who walked into rooms and made the temperature drop. His mother said he'd turned to stone. His sister said he'd lost his soul the night Catherine was swept away by the flooding river, her carriage overturned, her body never recovered. Maybe they were right. "Your Grace, Lady Victoria's family has sent another letter." Wickham shifted his weight. "They're inquiring about the wedding date." Edmund's jaw tightened. Lady Victoria Pemberton. Beautiful, educated, cold as marble. His family had orchestrated the match with surgical precision, leveraging his grief and isolation until he'd simply stopped resisting. What did it matter? One wife or another, one day or the next. It was all the same grey emptiness. "Tell them June," he said. "June, Your Grace? That's only 3 months. Tell them June or tell them nothing at all." He turned and started down the hillside toward the flower fields. The workers would be out by now, harvesting the early blooms for the London markets. Edmund rarely walked among them. The estate was vast, the hierarchy firmly established, but something pulled him forward that morning. Restlessness. Or maybe just the need to be anywhere other than that suffocating manor house where Catherine's ghost still lingered in every corner. The fields spread out before him in neat rows, splashes of colour against the green. Women in simple dresses moved between the plants, their hands quick and practiced. A few men worked the irrigation channels. Everyone stopped when they saw him approaching, straightening up, eyes downcast. Edmund hated it. The fear, the deference. He walked past them without speaking, his boots crunching on the gravel path. And then he saw her. She was kneeling between the rose bushes, her dark hair falling loose from a simple bun, dirt smudged across her cheek. Her hands moved with careful precision, cutting stems and laying them in a woven basket. She wore the same rough cotton dress as the other women, the same worn boots, but something about her made Edmund's footsteps falter. She looked up. For one impossible second, the world stopped. Her eyes. God, those eyes. That face. Edmund's breath caught in his chest like a fist. His vision blurred. The woman stared at him with wide, startled eyes that held something he couldn't name, something that reached across the distance between them and wrapped around his throat. No. Impossible. Catherine was dead. The woman dropped her cutting shears, stumbled backward, and Edmund realized he'd taken a step toward her without meaning to. His heart was hammering. His hands were shaking. "Your Grace." Wickham's voice came from somewhere far away. "Your Grace, are you unwell?" Edmund couldn't answer. The woman scrambled to her feet, backing away, and then she turned and ran, disappearing between the rows of flowers like a ghost dissolving into mist. "Who is that woman?" Edmund's voice came out hoarse. "Which woman, Your Grace?" "The one who just ran. Dark hair, working the roses." Wickham squinted. "Oh, that's Kate, Your Grace. One of the field workers. She's been here, 2 or 3 years now, I believe." 3 years. Edmund's blood turned to ice. Kate couldn't breathe. She ran blindly through the fields, her chest heaving, tears streaming down her face without understanding why. The other workers called after her, but she couldn't stop, not until she reached the small cottage she shared with 3 other women at the edge of the property. She burst through the door and collapsed against it, sliding to the floor, her whole body shaking. What was that? What just happened? She'd looked into that man's eyes, the lord of the estate, the duke everyone spoke about in hushed, fearful tones, and something inside her had cracked wide open. Terror, recognition, a pain so deep and overwhelming she thought she might drown in it. But she didn't know him. She didn't know anyone before 3 years ago. "Kate!" Mary, one of her housemates, appeared in the doorway to their shared bedroom. "What's wrong? Did something happen?" Kate shook her head, unable to speak. Her hands were trembling so badly she had to press them flat against the floor. "Was it the Duke?" Mary's voice dropped. "Did he say something to you?" "No. He just looked at me. Looked at you. I don't know how to explain it." Kate drew her knees up to her chest. "It felt like Like being struck by lightning. Like I knew him. But that's impossible. Mary knelt beside her, concern etched across her weathered face. Maybe you're working too hard. You've been out in the sun since dawn. It's not that. Kate pressed her palms against her eyes. Mary, what if I did know him? Before you came here. Before I lost my memory. The words hung in the air between them. Kate never talked about the before, the blank space in her mind where her past should be. She'd woken up 3 years ago in a farmer's barn, soaked through, covered in bruises, with no memory of how she'd gotten there or who she was. The kind farm family had brought her to Thornbury Estate, where Mr. Brennan, the field overseer, had given her work and a place to stay. Everyone assumed she was just another girl fallen on hard times, running from something or someone. It happened often enough. And Kate had been grateful to be taken in, to have purpose, to belong somewhere even if she didn't know where she'd come from. But now, you need rest, Mary said firmly. I'll tell Mr. Brennan you're feeling ill. No, don't. Kate. Mary squeezed her hand. Whatever that was, you're in no state to work. Stay here. I'll bring you something to eat. After Mary left, Kate sat in the dim cottage and tried to steady her breathing, but every time she closed her eyes, she saw him, the Duke. Those grey eyes that had looked at her like he'd seen a ghost, or like he'd seen someone he'd lost. That night, Edmund couldn't sleep. He stood at his bedroom window, staring out at the dark expanse of his estate, whiskey burning in his throat. The same question circled endlessly through his mind. How was it possible? Catherine's eyes, Catherine's face, thinner, yes, sun-weathered, but those features, he would know them anywhere. He'd traced them with his fingers countless times, memorized every curve and line. But Catherine was dead. She'd been dead for 3 years unless she wasn't. The thought was too enormous, too dangerous to fully grasp. Edmund set down his glass with shaking hands and paced the length of the room. If that woman in the fields was Catherine, if somehow impossibly she'd survived, then where had she been? Why hadn't she come back? Why was she working in his fields like a common labourer? Why had she run from him? A knock at the door interrupted his spiralling thoughts. Enter. His valet Patterson stepped inside. Your Grace, forgive the intrusion. Mr. Brennan is here. He says it's urgent. Thomas Brennan, the field overseer. Edmund's jaw clenched. Send him in. Brennan was a tall, broad-shouldered man in his early 30s, with the kind of weathered competence that came from years of outdoor labour. He removed his cap as he entered, but his expression was anything but deferential. Your Grace. His tone was carefully neutral. I heard you had an encounter with one of my workers today. Kate. Your workers? Edmund's voice turned dangerous. Last I checked, Mr. Brennan, everything on this estate belongs to me. Of course, Your Grace. Brennan didn't flinch. I only meant that Kate is under my supervision in the fields, and I'm here to make sure she wasn't troubled by anything that happened. Edmund studied the man before him. There was something protective in Brennan's stance, something almost possessive when he said Kate's name. Tell me about her, Edmund said. How long has she been here? 3 years, Your Grace, almost to the day. Edmund's hands curled into fists. And where did she come from? She doesn't remember. When the Harpers found her, their tenant farmers on the East Ridge, she was half drowned and unconscious. No memory of who she was or how she'd gotten into the river. The same river that had supposedly claimed Catherine's life. The doctor said it was probably a blow to the head, Brennan continued. Sometimes the memory comes back. Sometimes it doesn't. Kate worked hard, kept to herself, and I gave her a place in the fields. She's been a good worker, a kind person. And you care about her. It wasn't a question. Brennan met his eyes. I do. The jealousy that surged through Edmund was irrational and overwhelming. This man, this common overseer, had spent 3 years with Catherine, had protected her, clearly cared for her, while Edmund had been drowning in grief, believing his wife was dead. Stay away from her, Edmund said. With respect, Your Grace, I don't take orders about my personal life. You do when it comes to my wife. The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. Brennan's face went white. Your wife? Catherine? But she's alive. Edmund's voice cracked. Kate is Catherine. I'm certain of it. Brennan took a step backward, shaking his head. No, that's impossible. Kate is... She's not. Look at her face, Brennan. Really look. The eyes. The bone structure. It's her. But she would have said something. She would have known. She has no memory. You said it yourself. Edmund moved closer. But I know my wife, and that woman in the fields is Catherine Ashford. Brennan's expression cycled through disbelief, shock, and then something darker, anger. If that's true, if she really is Lady Catherine, then where have you been? She's been here for 3 years, Your Grace, 3 years of hard labor, living in a cottage with no heat, working herself to exhaustion, and you never noticed. The accusation hit like a physical blow. Edmund had no defense. He hadn't noticed. He'd isolated himself in his grief, managing the estate from a distance, never once walking among the field workers, never once looking. That changes now, Edmund said quietly. I want to see her. Tomorrow. Bring her to the manor house. She'll refuse. Then I'll go to her. Your Grace. Brennan's voice hardened. Kate is terrified. Whatever happened today shook her badly. If you force this, if you push her before she's ready, you'll only hurt her more. She's my wife. She doesn't remember being your wife. Brennan put his cap back on. And maybe that's for the best. Kate has a life here now. She has people who care about her. She has peace. Are you really going to rip that away from her? The question followed Edmund long after Brennan left. He stood alone in his study, surrounded by the trappings of wealth and power, and wondered if Brennan was right. But it didn't matter. Catherine was alive, and Edmund would move heaven and earth to bring her home. Even if she didn't remember him, even if she didn't want to come, she was his, and he would have her back. Kate dreamed that night, and the dreams were vivid enough to feel like memories. She was wearing a white dress, intricate and beautiful, walking down a staircase lined with candles. Music played somewhere distant. Hands reached for her, strong hands, gentle hands, and a voice whispered her name. Not Kate. Catherine. She woke, gasping, tangled in her thin sheets, her heart racing. The cottage was dark and silent around her. Mary and the others were sleeping soundly in the next room, but Kate couldn't shake the feeling that the dream wasn't a dream at all. It was a memory trying to surface. She pressed her hands against her temples, willing the images to come into focus, but they remained frustratingly vague. A staircase, a white dress, a name that didn't feel like hers but somehow did, and those eyes. The Duke's eyes, grey and intense and full of something that looked like devastation. Kate climbed out of bed and wrapped a shawl around her shoulders. The cottage had a small window overlooking the fields, and she stood there in the darkness, staring out at the estate that had been her whole world for 3 years. What if she wasn't Kate at all? What if she was someone else, someone important enough to make a duke look at her like his world had ended? The thought terrified her, almost as much as it thrilled her, because if she was someone else, then everything she'd built here, the fragile sense of belonging, the simple routines, the friendships, all of it could shatter. Kate! Mary's sleepy voice came from the bedroom. What are you doing up? I can't sleep. Mary padded into the main room, rubbing her eyes. Still thinking about the Duke? Kate nodded. You know what people say about him, don't you? Mary settled into the chair by the cold fireplace. That he's been in mourning for 3 years. That his wife died in a terrible accident and it broke something in him. That he used to be different. Kinder. But now he's like ice. Kate's chest tightened. His wife? Lady Catherine. They say she was lovely. Young. That they were deeply in love, even though it was an arranged marriage. Mary picked at the worn fabric of her nightdress. The night she died, there was a terrible storm. Her carriage was crossing the old bridge when the river flooded. They found the wreckage, but they never found her body. The room spun. Kate gripped the window frame to steady herself. A storm, a river, the feeling of drowning, of water closing over her head. Kate, are you all right? You've gone pale. What did she look like? Kate whispered. Lady Catherine. I don't know, I never saw her, but they say she had dark hair and... Mary stopped, her eyes widening. Kate, why are you asking? Because I think... Kate's voice shook. I think the Duke recognized me today. I think he saw something that made him... She couldn't finish. The words were too impossible. Mary stood up slowly. You think you might be her? I don't know. But the way he looked at me, Mary, like I'd come back from the dead. And these dreams I've been having, they feel like memories. A white dress, a staircase, someone calling me Catherine. That's... Mary pressed her hand against her mouth. That's impossible. If you were Lady Catherine, you'd remember. You'd know. But what if I don't? What if the accident took that from me? Kate turned to face her friend. I was found 3 years ago, half drowned in the river. The same river where Lady Catherine supposedly died. The same time. Mary, what if I didn't die? What if I survived but lost everything else? The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, Mary said, "If that's true, then your life is about to change in ways you can't imagine." I know. Kate's hands trembled. And I don't know if I want it to. Because the truth was, Kate liked her life. It was simple, uncomplicated. She worked hard, she had friends, and she answered to no one. If she was Catherine, if she was a duchess married to that cold, intense man, what would that mean for the person she'd become? Would Kate cease to exist entirely? The next morning, Edmund was waiting at the edge of the fields before dawn. He'd barely slept, his mind consumed with plans and possibilities. He needed to see her again, needed to confirm what his heart already knew. Catherine was alive. Thomas Brennan arrived with the sunrise, his expression grim when he spotted Edmund. "Your Grace, I didn't expect you here." "Where is she?" "In the rose fields, where she always works." Brennan moved to block Edmund's path. "But I meant what I said last night. Kate isn't ready for this." "I don't care if she's ready." Edmund's voice was steel. "I've lost 3 years with my wife. I won't lose another day. She's not your wife anymore. Not to her." Brennan's jaw clenched. "You're a stranger, a frightening stranger, and if you push too hard, you'll break her. Then I'll be gentle." "Will you?" Brennan searched his face. "Because the man I've heard about these past 3 years, the cold, unfeeling duke everyone fears, that man doesn't know how to be gentle." The words cut deep because they were true. Edmund had become a shell of himself, hardened by grief, distant by design. He'd forgotten how to be anything other than rigid and controlled. But for Catherine, he would remember. "Show me where she is," Edmund said quietly. "Please." Brennan hesitated, then nodded. "Follow me." "But Your Grace, don't expect miracles. She may not want what you're offering." They walked in silence through the dewy grass, the morning sun painting everything gold. Edmund's heart hammered with each step. When they rounded the hedgerow into the rose fields, he saw her immediately. She was standing with her back to them, sorting stems into piles, her movements practiced and efficient. The morning light caught in her dark hair, and Edmund felt the familiar ache of longing so intense it stole his breath. "Kate," Brennan called gently. She turned, and this time, when her eyes met Edmund's, she didn't run. She stood frozen, clutching a rose stem so tightly a thorn bit into her palm. Blood welled up, but she didn't seem to notice. Edmund took a step forward. "Catherine, don't." Her voice cracked. "Don't call me that. It's your name." "No. My name is Kate. Your name is Catherine Ashford." Edmund moved closer, his hands shaking. "You're my wife. 3 years ago you disappeared in a storm. I thought you were dead. I mourned you. And now you're here, alive, and you don't remember me." Kate's breathing quickened. "I don't remember anything. Before 3 years ago there's nothing, just darkness." "Then let me help you remember." Edmund reached out, slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he touched her hand. The contact sent electricity through them both. "Please, come back to the manor, talk to me, let me show you who you were." "I know who I am." But her voice wavered. "Do you?" Edmund's thumb brushed across her knuckles. "Or do you just know who you became when you had nowhere else to go?" Tears spilled down Kate's cheeks. "I'm afraid." "Of what?" "Of remembering." She looked up at him, and in her eyes, Edmund saw terror and longing warring together. "What if I remember and I don't like who I was? What if I remember and I can't go back to being Kate? What if I remember and it destroys me? Then I'll catch you," Edmund said softly. "I'll catch you, and I won't let you fall." For a long moment, she just stared at him. Then slowly she pulled her hand away. "I need time. Catherine. Kate." Her voice firmed. "Until I remember differently. I'm Kate, and Kate needs time to decide if she wants to know Catherine." Edmund wanted to argue, wanted to demand she come with him right now, but Brennan's warning echoed in his mind, and he forced himself to nod. "1 week," he said. "I'll give you 1 week. But then, Catherine, I'm coming back, and I won't leave without you." He turned and walked away before he could change his mind, before he could grab her and never let go. Behind him, he heard her sob, a broken, desperate sound that nearly brought him to his knees. But he kept walking. because if there was any chance of getting his wife back, he had to do this right, even if it killed him. The news spread through the estate like wildfire. By noon, every servant in Thornbury Manor knew that Lady Catherine Ashford, dead for 3 years, was alive and working in the flower fields. By evening, the scandal had reached London, and by the following morning, Lady Victoria Pemberton arrived in a fury that could have burned down the countryside. Kate heard the commotion from the fields. Carriage wheels crunching on gravel, raised voices, the sharp commands of someone used to being obeyed. She kept her head down, her hands moving mechanically through the roses, but her heart was racing. "Kate!" Thomas appeared beside her, his expression dark. "You should go. Lady Victoria is here, and she's demanding to see the Duke. This won't be pleasant. Why would I need to leave? I'm just a field worker." Thomas gave her a long look. "Are you? Because the entire estate is talking about how you're actually Lady Catherine, how the Duke has gone mad with grief or hope or both, how his engagement to Lady Victoria is about to explode." Kate's chest tightened. "I never asked for any of this." "I know." Thomas touched her shoulder gently. "But it's happening anyway. And Kate, or Catherine, or whoever you are, you need to decide what you want, because the Duke isn't going to let this go, and neither is Lady Victoria." Before Kate could respond, a sharp voice cut through the air. "You there, field worker?" Kate turned. A woman stood at the edge of the fields, immaculately dressed in a travelling gown of deep blue, her blonde hair perfectly arranged beneath a fashionable hat. Even from a distance, Kate could see the fury radiating from her. Lady Victoria. "Yes, my lady." Kate's voice came out steadier than she felt. "Come here. Now." Thomas stepped forward. "Lady Victoria, with respect, Kate is working—" "I don't recall asking you." Victoria's eyes were ice. "The woman, here, immediately." Kate set down her basket and walked toward the woman who was supposed to marry Edmund. Up close, Victoria was stunning, the kind of classical beauty that belonged in paintings and ballrooms, but her eyes were cold, calculating, and full of barely restrained rage. "So you're the ghost who's come back to haunt us," Victoria said. "Let me see you properly." Kate stood still while Victoria circled her, examining her like livestock at market. The humiliation burned, but Kate kept her chin up. "Remarkable," Victoria murmured. "You do look like her. The portraits in the manor, yes, I can see it. Thinner, rougher. But the resemblance is there." She stopped in front of Kate. "Tell me, do you remember being Lady Catherine Ashford?" "No." "How convenient." Victoria's smile was sharp. "You conveniently forget 3 years of your life, including your marriage to one of England's wealthiest dukes, and now you conveniently reappear just as he's about to marry someone else. Forgive me if I find the timing suspicious." "I didn't ask to be found," Kate said quietly. "I was content here." "Content?" Victoria laughed bitterly. "Do you have any idea what your death did to him? Edmund Ashford was destroyed. He became a shadow, and I spent the last year slowly bringing him back to life, convincing him he could have a future again. I was going to be his wife, his duchess, and now you, some field worker with dirt under her nails and convenient amnesia, think you can waltz back into his life. I don't think anything. I'm just trying to understand what's happening to me. What's happening is that you're about to ruin everything." Victoria stepped closer, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper. "I have invested too much time, too much effort, too much of my family's influence to let some ghost from the past take what's mine. Edmund made a promise to me. We have a wedding planned, and I will not let you destroy that. I haven't done anything. You exist. That's enough." Victoria's eyes flashed. "So here's what's going to happen. You're going to disappear. Again. Take some money. Leave the estate. Start over somewhere far away where Edmund will never find you. Or I will make your life here so miserable you'll wish you'd stayed drowned." The cruelty of it took Kate's breath away, but before she could respond, Edmund's voice cut through the tension like a blade. "Victoria, step away from her. Now." He strode across the field, his face dark with anger. Victoria turned, her expression shifting instantly to something softer, more controlled. "Edmund, darling, I was just threatening my wife." Edmund positioned himself between Victoria and Kate. "I heard every word. She's not your wife, not anymore. She doesn't even remember being your wife. That doesn't change the facts. Catherine is alive. Our marriage is valid, which means your engagement is void." Victoria's composure cracked. "You can't be serious. You're choosing her. This field worker who doesn't even know you. Over me. Over our future. There is no future with you. Edmund's voice was final. There never really was. I was using you to hide from my grief, and that was wrong. I'm ending this. The engagement is over. My family will ruin you. Let them try. Edmund didn't look away from Kate. I've already lost everything once. I'm not losing her again. Victoria's face flushed with rage and humiliation. You'll regret this, both of you. She turned on her heel and stormed away, her skirts whipping behind her. The silence that followed was deafening. Kate stood frozen, her mind reeling. Edmund had just destroyed his engagement, publicly claimed her as his wife, and set off a scandal that would echo through every drawing room in England. For her, for someone who couldn't even remember loving him. You shouldn't have done that, Kate whispered. I should have done it sooner. Edmund reached for her hand, but she pulled away. You don't understand. I'm not her. I'm not Catherine. I'm Kate, and Kate doesn't know how to be a duchess. Kate doesn't know how to navigate your world. Kate is Catherine. Edmund's voice broke. You can call yourself whatever you want, but you're still my wife. You're still the woman I married, the woman I loved, the woman I thought I'd lost forever. Past tense, Kate said. Loved. You loved her. But she's gone, Edmund. Even if I am Catherine physically, the person she was died in that river. I'm someone else now. Then let me get to know who you are now. Edmund's desperation was palpable. Please, just give me a chance. Come to the manor. Let me show you your old life. If you still want to leave after that, I'll let you go, I swear it. Kate looked at this man, this powerful, broken man who was willing to risk everything for a ghost, and she felt something shift inside her. Fear, yes, but also curiosity, and beneath that something deeper, something that felt like recognition, even if her mind couldn't grasp it. One day, she said finally, I'll come to the manor for one day, but Thomas comes with me. Edmund's jaw clenched at the mention of Thomas, but he nodded. Fine, tomorrow I'll send a carriage. He walked away, leaving Kate shaking in the middle of the field, and behind her, Thomas spoke quietly. Are you sure about this? No, Kate admitted, but I have to know. I have to know who I was, even if it terrifies me. Thomas was quiet for a long moment. Then, I love you, Kate. I need you to know that. I've loved you since the day you arrived here, broken and lost. I've watched you become strong and whole. And if you go to that manor, if you remember being his wife, I know I'll lose you, but I love you enough to let you find out. Kate turned to face him, tears streaming down her cheeks. Thomas, don't. He shook his head. Don't say anything. Not yet. Just remember that you have a choice. You always have a choice. Even if he was your husband once, you don't owe him your future. You don't owe anyone anything. He walked away, leaving Kate alone with the roses and the impossible weight of two lives converging. The carriage arrived at dawn. Kate had barely slept, her mind churning with anxiety and fragmented dreams that might have been memories. She dressed in her best dress, which was still rough cotton, still marked by years of fieldwork, and braided her hair as neatly as she could manage. Thomas helped her into the carriage silently. His face was carefully blank, but Kate saw the pain in his eyes. She wanted to comfort him, to promise him something, but the words stuck in her throat. The ride to Thornbury Manor felt both endless and too short. Kate stared out the window at the rolling countryside, the manicured gardens, the sheer wealth displayed in every stone and hedge. This had been her home. She'd lived here as a duchess, as Edmund's wife, but she felt nothing, no recognition, no sense of belonging. The manor itself was massive, a sprawling estate of grey stone and countless windows. Servants lined the entrance, their faces curious and uncertain. Kate felt like a specimen being studied as she climbed out of the carriage, Thomas at her side. Edmund waited at the top of the steps, dressed formally, his expression carefully controlled. But Kate saw the hope burning in his eyes, and it made her chest ache. "Welcome home, Catherine." "It's not my home," she said. "Not any more." "Then let me show you what it was." Edmund descended the steps and offered his arm. Kate hesitated, then took it. The contact sent a jolt through her, familiar somehow, electric, but she pushed the feeling away. He led her through massive doors into an entrance hall that took her breath away. Marble floors, sweeping staircases, paintings covering every wall, and there, prominently displayed above the main staircase, was a portrait. Kate stopped breathing. The woman in the painting was young, beautiful, dressed in a gown of deep emerald. Her dark hair was arranged elegantly, her smile soft and genuine, and her eyes, those were Kate's eyes looking back at her. "That's you," Edmund said quietly. "Painted 2 months before the accident. You were 22 years old. We'd been married for a year." Kate couldn't speak. She just stared at her own face rendered in oil and canvas, at the life she couldn't remember living. "You hated formal events," Edmund continued, his voice rough with emotion. "You said they made you feel like a performing doll. You loved the gardens, spent hours there reading or just walking. You were kind to everyone, even when society said you didn't have to be. You laughed easily. You made me laugh, which no one else could do." "Stop," Kate's voice cracked. "Please stop." "Why?" "Because you're talking about someone who doesn't exist anymore. I'm not that woman. I can't be that woman." "Then who are you?" Edmund moved to stand in front of her. "Tell me. Who is Kate?" "Kate is unsimple. Kate works hard. Kate doesn't have expectations or obligations. Kate is free. And Catherine wasn't." The question hit harder than Kate expected. She looked at the portrait again, at the carefully arranged perfection of it, and suddenly saw something else. The smile didn't quite reach the eyes. The posture was too rigid. The woman in that painting looked beautiful and poised and utterly trapped. "Was I happy?" Kate whispered. "Before the accident. Was I happy being Catherine?" Edmund's silence was answer enough. "You weren't happy either," Kate said. "It wasn't a question. You loved me, but something was wrong." "What was it?" "The weight of expectation." Edmund ran a hand through his hair. "My family, society, the pressure to be a certain way, to maintain appearances. I let it get between us. I let myself become cold and distant, because that's what dukes are supposed to be. And I could see it hurting you, but I didn't know how to stop it. So we were both trapped." "Yes." Edmund's voice was barely audible. "And then you were gone, and I realized too late that the trap didn't matter, that nothing mattered except having you beside me. I would have given up the title, the estate, everything if it meant getting you back." Kate felt tears sliding down her cheeks. "And now I'm here. But I'm not her. I'm not the woman you lost. I'm someone who spent 3 years being free, Edmund. Someone who doesn't know how to go back to a cage, even a gilded one." "Then we won't go back." Edmund stepped closer, his eyes intense. "We'll build something new. No expectations, no society rules, just us figuring out who we are and what we want. Catherine, Kate, whoever you choose to be, I don't care about the name. I care about you. You don't know me. Then let me learn." Edmund reached up slowly, giving her time to pull away, and touched her face. His thumb brushed across her cheekbone, and suddenly Kate was drowning in sensation. This touch, this exact gentle pressure, she knew it. Her body remembered even if her mind didn't. "I remember this," she gasped. "Your hands, the way you touch. I remember." Edmund's breath caught. "What else?" Kate closed her eyes, letting the physical memory guide her. "Your voice. Late at night, talking to me while I fell asleep. You'd tell me stories about places you wanted to take me. Scotland, Italy, anywhere I wanted to go. We never went. I was always too busy with estate business. You regretted it." Kate's eyes flew open. "You told me once that you regretted it, that you'd give anything for more time." "I did. I do." Edmund's other hand came up to frame her face. "Catherine," and then he was kissing her. It was gentle at first, almost hesitant, as if he was afraid she'd break. But Kate felt something crack wide open inside her. She remembered this too. The taste of him, the way he held her like she was precious and vital and his. 3 years of absence collapsed into this single moment of contact. Kate kissed him back desperately, her hands fisting in his coat, and suddenly she was remembering everything. Their wedding night, quiet mornings in bed, arguments about his distance, making up, laughing, crying. The full weight of a year of marriage flooding back in fragments and flashes, and then the night of the storm. Kate pulled away with a gasp, her whole body shaking. "The storm? I remember the storm. Tell me." Edmund held her steady. "I was going to leave you." The words came out broken. "I'd packed a bag. I was going to stay with my aunt in Bath because I couldn't bear the distance between us anymore. I thought maybe if I left, you'd realize what you were losing. But the storm came up so fast. The bridge was flooding, the carriage overturned, and I was in the water. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Everything went dark." "God, Catherine!" Edmund pulled her against his chest. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I drove you to that." I chose to leave. That was my decision. Kate clutched him tight. But Edmund, I'm glad the woman I was died in that river. He pulled back, confusion and pain written across his face. That Catherine was suffocating, Kate continued. She was trying so hard to be perfect, to fit into a world that didn't want her to breathe. Kate, the woman I became, she's stronger, freer, more herself. I don't want to lose that. Then don't. Edmund brushed her tears away. Be both. Be Kate and Catherine. Be whoever you need to be. I'll love all of you. Kate searched his face. Can you really do that? Can you really let go of who you expected me to be? I already have. Edmund's voice was fierce. The moment I saw you in those fields, I stopped caring about expectations. I only care about keeping you alive, keeping you here. Everything else is negotiable. Behind them, someone cleared their throat. Thomas stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. Kate, we should go. Kate felt Edmund tense, but she pulled away gently. Thomas. No. Thomas held up a hand. I can see it. The way you look at him. The way you fit together. You've remembered, haven't you? You're Catherine again. I'm both, Kate said. I'm always going to be both. And where does that leave me? Thomas's voice cracked. I meant what I said in the fields. I love you. I've loved you for 3 years, but I can see that he had you first, that he still has you even after all this time. Thomas, you saved me. You gave me a life when I had nothing. I know. Thomas smiled sadly. And I'd do it again. But Kate, Catherine, I can't watch you choose him and stay here. It would kill me. So I'm going to leave. Take a position on another estate. Start over. You don't have to do that. Yes, I do. Thomas looked at Edmund. Take care of her. Not the way you did before, not with distance and duty. Take care of the real her, the Kate part and the Catherine part, because she deserves better than what either of us gave her. Edmund nodded, something passing between the two men. Respect, understanding, and grief for what could never be. Thomas turned and walked away, and Kate felt something break inside her. Not her heart. That was firmly in Edmund's hands now, but the loss of possibility, the simple, uncomplicated future she could have had. I'm sorry, Edmund said quietly. Don't be. Kate took his hand. You didn't make me choose. I chose. I choose you. But Edmund, I need you to understand something. I'm not moving back into this manor as the perfect duchess. I'm not going to wear those suffocating gowns and host pointless parties and pretend to be someone I'm not. Good. I hated those parties anyway. Kate laughed through her tears. I'm serious. So am I. Edmund pulled her closer. We'll make new rules. We'll figure out what kind of life we want together. And anyone who doesn't like it can go to hell. Your family will be scandalized. Let them be. Edmund kissed her forehead. I've spent 3 years being dead inside, Catherine. I'm done living for anyone's expectations but ours. They spent the next 2 weeks in careful negotiation. Not of feelings, those were clear, overwhelming, undeniable, but of logistics, of boundaries, of building a life that honored both Catherine's past and Kate's present. Kate moved into the manor, but she insisted on helping in the gardens, not as a hobby, but as real work. The servants were scandalized. Edmund's family sent outraged letters. Kate ignored them all. Edmund shocked everyone by attending workers' meetings, by actually listening to Thomas's replacement about field conditions, by implementing changes that Catherine, Kate suggested. The estate thrived in ways it never had under his cold management. They fought sometimes. Kate's directness clashed with Edmund's ingrained formality. Her insistence on equality battled his instinct to protect and control. But they learned to talk through it, to be honest, to meet in the middle. And slowly, room by room, touch by touch, they fell in love again. Not the naive young love of their first marriage. This was deeper, scarred, earned through loss and reunion. Edmund learned to be vulnerable. Kate learned to trust. They learned each other all over again, the new versions they'd become through 3 years of separation. One evening, as they walked through the gardens in the golden light of sunset, Edmund stopped and turned to Kate. Marry me. We're already married. Marry me again. Edmund took her hands. Properly this time, not because it's expected, not because our families arranged it, but because we choose it, because we know what we're getting into, and we want it anyway. Kate felt her throat tighten with emotion. Are you sure? I'm not going to suddenly become a conventional duchess. Thank God for that. Edmund smiled. a real, genuine smile that transformed his face. "Catherine, Kate, my impossible, stubborn, perfect love, will you marry me again?" "Yes." Kate kissed him. "Yes, I'll marry you. Again." The ceremony took place 3 weeks later in the estate gardens. Small, intimate, nothing like the formal society wedding they'd had the first time. Kate wore a simple cream dress, elegant but comfortable, something she'd chosen herself. Edmund wore no formal title regalia, just a well-tailored suit. The guests were few, a handful of servants who'd become friends, some of the field workers who'd welcomed Kate when she had nothing, and Edmund's sister, who'd surprised them both by being genuinely supportive. Thomas didn't attend. He'd taken a position in Scotland and sent a letter wishing them happiness. Kate cried when she read it, and Edmund held her, understanding that she could mourn what might have been while still choosing their future. The vows they spoke weren't the traditional ones. They'd written their own. "I promise to let you be whoever you need to be," Edmund said, his voice steady. "Kate or Catherine or something entirely new. I promise to never ask you to shrink yourself to fit into a box, even a gilded one. I promise to fight beside you, not for you. And I promise to never ever take you for granted again." Kate's hands trembled in his. "I promise to be patient with you when you fall back into old patterns, and to call you out when you need it. I promise to build a life with you, not just exist in one. I promise to remember the woman I was while honoring the woman I've become, and I promise that no matter what storms come, I'll never leave you again." When Edmund kissed her, the small gathering cheered, and Kate felt something settle in her chest, a sense of rightness, of coming home to herself and to him at the same time. They were both damaged, both transformed by loss, but together they were whole. 3 years later, Catherine stood on the same hill where Edmund had first walked among the fields, but everything was different now. The workers' cottages had been rebuilt, proper homes with heat and space. A school operated on the estate grounds, teaching the children of workers and tenant farmers alike. The fields still flourished, but under fair conditions and fair pay. And in Catherine's arms, a small child fussed, her dark curls falling into eyes that were exactly Edmund's shade of grey. "She's teething again," Catherine said as Edmund climbed the hill to join her. "Nothing makes her happy except being outside." "Then she's definitely your daughter." Edmund kissed Catherine's temple before taking their daughter, Lily, into his arms. She immediately settled, grabbing at his collar. "How was the meeting?" Catherine asked. "Productive. The tenant farmers' cooperative is officially established. They'll have real say in how the land is managed now." Edmund smiled. "Your idea, of course. I just signed the papers." "Our idea," Catherine corrected. "We're partners, remember?" "I remember." Edmund's free hand found hers. "I remember everything now." And he did. They both did. The pain of their first marriage, the agony of separation, the tentative joy of reunion. It was all part of their story, the dark threads woven through the light, making the tapestry stronger. In the distance, Catherine saw a familiar figure walking the fields. Thomas had returned 6 months ago with a wife, a Scottish woman with red hair and a sharp wit. He'd asked if there was a place for them on the estate, and Catherine had said yes without hesitation. The past didn't have to be buried to move forward. "Do you ever regret it?" Edmund asked quietly. "Choosing this life, choosing me. You could have stayed, Kate. Could have been free." Catherine looked at her husband, at their daughter, at the estate they'd transformed together from a place of rigid hierarchy into something that felt like community. "I am free," she said, "because I chose you, because we built this together, because I'm Kate and Catherine at the same time and you love all of me." "Every impossible piece," Edmund confirmed. Their son James came running up the hill at that moment, 2 years old and fearless, chasing a butterfly with the single-minded determination he'd inherited from both parents. Catherine laughed and scooped him up before he could tumble down the other side. "We should go back," she said, "before these two convince themselves they can fly." "They probably could if they tried hard enough," Edmund said. "They're your children, after all." "Our children." Catherine kissed him. "Everything is ours now, no more mine or yours, just ours." They walked back to the manor as the sun set, their children between them, and Catherine felt nothing but peace. She'd been drowned and reborn. She'd lost herself and found someone better. She'd died and come back to life, and she'd learned that love wasn't about perfection or expectations. It was about choosing each other, every day, through every storm. Catherine Ashford had been lost in the river 3 years ago. But Kate, strong, free, impossible Kate, had survived. And together with Edmund, they'd built something neither Catherine nor Kate could have created alone. They'd built a life worth living, a love worth fighting for, a future worth every scar they'd earned getting there. And as Catherine looked back one last time at the fields where her second life had begun, she whispered a quiet thank you to the storm that had broken her so she could be remade into something whole.